The cancerous tumor on world motorsport that is Spec Racing has claimed yet another victim. Global Rallycross today made an announcement to one of their tracks that they were ceasing operations. And as of right now, their website is shut down and they are no longer taking ticket sales for the 2018 season. Now, full disclosure, they did make a statement that they are planning on making a return in 2019. But if you are a student of the sport, a lot of times when a series shuts down, even if they have plans to come back, they usually don't. So how did we get to this point? Well, if you've seen my video already talking about what I thought was the beginning of the end for Global Rallycross, meaning the announcement of the Gold class, which was essentially a souped-up version of the Rallycross Lights, taking over for the supercars, the cars like the Honda Civic, the Subaru Impreza, obviously the dominant Volkswagen Beetle. And I thought at that time that, well, this is the beginning of the end. They probably got 1 or 2 seasons more max. Turns out they didn't even make it to the first race before the series folded. Now, a lot of people have a chicken or the egg argument in regard to why Global Rallycross decided to go with a spec formula. There's my personal theory that they told the manufacturers to go screw themselves because entertainment or something, because that's the way they worded it in their press release. But others have speculated that it was the other way around, and the manufacturers told Global Rallycross to go screw themselves, and they left on their own accord. But regardless of how we get there to Spec Racing, nobody bought what they were selling. And the series folded because even if you reduce the costs, you can talk about reducing cost until you're blue in the face. The ultimate form of cost cutting in motorsports is to simply not go racing. And that's what Global Rallycross ultimately decided to do by going to Spec Racing. Now, one of the things that they talked about as a major point in their press release was, we're really going to sell the competition between the drivers. And that's another thing that I always hear from the people who defend Spec Racing. And oh, racing's about the drivers. We want to see the driver competition. But as far as I'm concerned, top-level motorsports has never been successful selling itself exclusively on the skill of the drivers. That's only worked, in my opinion, once ever in the history of motorsports, and that was the mid-2000s in NASCAR, when you had guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, guys who were larger than life. Unfortunately, NASCAR is now seeing the other side of that. When you promote the stars as the only attraction, eventually there will be drivers who you've promoted as gods who underperform, I should say, like Danica Patrick or Dale Earnhardt Jr., or just drivers who simply get too old and retire, like Jeff Gordon or Tony Stewart. And what you're left with are a bunch of people who simply don't have that godlike status that are expected to fill the shoes immediately of the drivers that have left, and that never ever works. So in top-level motorsport, the cars are always going to be the stars. It may surprise you if you're a big-time racing mark why no one cares necessarily about Joseph Newgarden, or they don't care about Kyle Larson, or they don't care about, insert your young, famous, or at least a driver that you think is famous or like quite a bit, why people don't receive them the same way as they would an A.J. Foyt or a Mario Andretti or a Jackie Ickx or someone like that, or an Ayrton Senna. It's because of the fact that ultimately, especially in top-level motorsports, the cars make the drivers. Nobody knew A.J. Foyt until he went to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and won the Indianapolis 500 in his Watson Roadster. Eventually, it was, the Coyotes that he would drive and build himself. So when you take away that element from racing, you're left with a very stale, a very brittle product because, again, like I said in the last video, racing is unlike the other sports. It's not a stick and ball sport where, the balls need to all be the same inflation, otherwise you get Deflategate. No, the cars make a huge difference. they make a huge increase in ticket sales. I mean, there's a reason why me and 100,000 of my closest friends were in Sebring, Florida this spring for the 12 hours of Sebring. It's because of the cars. You know, you could talk about Juan Pablo Montoya or Paul di Resta or some of the, you know, Formula One level talent, driving talent that was there, but ultimately I think you sold more tickets because you could talk about Corvette versus Ford or Acura versus Nissan and Cadillac and all of them. You can sell that, but I don't know how many tickets they sold just because Juan Pablo Montoya was going to be there or just because Helio Castroneves is going to be there. I'm sure they sold a few, but again, it's about the cars. And when you take away that aspect from racing, you're left with just a regular old stick and ball sport again. And again, we need to call this out. If you like a racing series and they're deciding to go further and further into the spec realm of doing things, you have to realize that this is absolutely playing with fire. You know, there's no coincidence, or it's no coincidence that IndyCar's revival really started when Chevrolet announced they were coming back into the series in 2011. And you look at some of the things that are declining around NASCAR right now, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, and especially down the line here, if you look at the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, they're starting to introduce spec motors into those series. Do you really think the manufacturers are going to stick around when they're really not competing against each other for anything other than a sticker on the hood? I don't know about that. So we've really got to look at this, and we've got to kind of rethink the way racing is going because, you know, again, the ultimate form of cost cutting is just to stop, you know, racing entirely. So if that's your argument, you know, I'm sorry, top level racing isn't for you. And if you want racing to be all about the drivers and that's the only thing you care about, maybe go watch Indy Lights, maybe go watch F2, because top level motorsports has never been and never will be exclusively about the drivers. But honestly, it's a real shame that Global Rallycross had to die. I feel sorry for anybody who lost their jobs. No doubt that this was just unfortunate. And I don't want this video to really be like me gloating that I was right or anything. It's more of just a look and say, look, this is a problem and this doesn't work. And if you're a motorsport head or somebody who runs a racing series, you need to look at this and say, you need to take a hard look at this and say, okay, we know that doesn't work now. We've seen it. It killed a series literally in a year that, you know, a year ago it was thriving, had an NBC Sports TV deal, had 3 or 4 manufacturers, big driver names, all of the stuff that you could possibly want in a racing series, and it's gone. So, again, we've got to look at this, and we've got to, you know, just be aware that this is the end game when you don't think that the cars are the stars in racing. There is hope for some rallycross fans in the United States, though. Thankfully, there's been a breakaway series that started up. That's why a lot of people have been led to believe that the manufacturers left GRC to begin with. It's called American Rallycross, and at the moment, I believe they only have like 1 or 2 rounds actually in the United States for 2018. Hopefully, that will change for 2019, and we'll get something similar to what we had with the Global Rallycross in years past. It looks like all the big supercar drivers, teams, and names are going to be there. I know Ken Block is just committed to the series. There's rumors that the Honda Civics are going to be there. I believe the Subarus and the Fords and the Volkswagens have already committed to the series. So Rallycross, thankfully, is not dead in this country. If you can get out to an American Rallycross event this year, even if it's in England, I would say go and support it, because just the same as, you know, we didn't buy the product that GRC was selling into this year. We need to buy the product that American Rallycross is selling now, because we need to put our money where our mouths are. And if we really want to support the series that are providing the products we theoretically want to buy, we need to go buy tickets. That's why if you like IMSA, go buy tickets to IMSA. If you like IndyCar, go buy tickets to IndyCar. If you like the Truck Series, go buy tickets to the Truck Series. This is the way you got to support the series you like, because there's potential that they may not be there the next year, because if the manufacturers don't find value in it anymore, or they decide to go full spec and completely lose interest, there can be some problems. So again, real shame about the Global Rallycross. Let me know your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I'm totally wrong, because believe me, there were a lot of people who let me know I was totally wrong in the last Rallycross video. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.